أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين باره الخلائق أجمعين الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Obviously, there's a lot of new faces today, and just as I have been saying in the last couple of every night, basically, my lecture series is connected to a specific topic. And if you have not been able to follow along with the first, second, or third lecture, my apologies. Some of the discussions may not make sense, and I have very short time today, so I probably will not even be able to recap in a lot of detail. But just very, very briefly, we have been discussing a discussion from theory of education, and more precisely, the purpose of education. Why, for example, do I have to come on this mimbar? Why do the centers have to invite me or other speakers and other scholars to come in Muharram and Safar on Thursday night and throughout the year to the different majalis and milad and invite speakers and lecturers to come and present something? What is the actual purpose of all of this? And we have been discussing 3, 4, 5 different theories. We went through 4 theories, and we sort of gave our observations on those. And yesterday we discussed a 5th theory, which we said that the ultimate purpose or the crux of why we should engage in education, which is education equals ta'aleem plus tarbiyah. Ta'aleem meaning to inform somebody who does not know something and you give them that information, and tarbiyah means to now get them to act on that knowledge and information that they have received. This is what education is, and the crux of it is basically to make you a better human being. Okay, and we talked about some of the ayat and some of the riwayat where even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa that the main primary reason why I was even sent, the reason why the bi'tha even happened, was for me to come and perfect the makarimul akhlaq. Okay, it was not just for you to come and say tawheed and Allah ek hai, Allah is one, and then that's the end of story. No. It's supposed to be transformative. It's supposed to change you and so on. So tonight's lecture, I actually had a lot of things planned for tonight's lecture. I even brought the Quran because I was going to do a case study. Let's see, inshallah, if I can, get to it, because this is a very, I have to acknowledge it's a very deep and complex topic, and I wish I had maybe at least 10, 12 sessions to go through it. Each session at least 90 minutes. It's a whole, research that I've been doing over the last couple of years. But I hope at least it has opened the minds of some of the listeners who were listening. Thank you. I know I'm getting a lot of comments and questions as well. And apologies, I've not been able to respond to them yet. But inshallah, after tomorrow, Arba'een, and Sunday, inshallah, I will try to respond to the people who have been messaging me for the references and sources and other observations that they have given. Yesterday, I said that, if the crux of education is to make you a better human being, and we talked about that means that if a child comes to school and goes through a course or a subject or a year of education under a teacher, what am I looking for? What is the criteria to figure out that this teacher was successful? We say that, look, at least 2, 3 qualities should be observable in this child. One is that they should be truthful, and by truthful we talked about the harmony between the 2 dimensions of the insan. And we also talked about humility, and we talked about ihsan. Okay, we talked about humility and we talked about ihsan, and we gave a certain definition. Now, how do we actually do this? What am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to come and tell the child, humility is a good trait, ihsan is a good trait, be a good boy, be a good person, be nice to your parents. Well, I mean, that's already, people are doing it. That was the original problem. We said hundreds and thousands of lectures are being given. Just in the first 10 days of Muharram, hundreds and thousands of lectures are being given. But it doesn't seem our communities are progressing anywhere. Whereas Harvard and Yale and these Oxford universities can publish 3, 4, 5 papers, and there's an entire paradigm shift in the world. So that was the problem. So maybe we have to go back. Now over here, there are a lot of different solutions. Okay, a lot of different solutions. Okay, one of the things that we should also understand that not every problem has one solution and that's it. जो मैंने solution ढूंढा यही है, इस तरह नहीं होता. Things have multiple solutions. As I already said, people are different, personalities are different, affinities are different. There could be multiple solutions, and we have to admit that there are multiple solutions. For example, amongst our Hawza circles, we have this discussion. Okay. For example, some of us say that perhaps the solution to all of this is that the scholars have to play a role here. Maybe the scholars have to be more with the people rather than have a protocol. Someone is invited, international speakers are invited, they come, they give 10 lectures and they go away. They never got an opportunity to actually build a relationship with the community. Hundreds and thousands of people are coming to listen to this speaker. They come, 10 lectures and gone. Some scholars from Qom will call these people parachute Maulanas. They come, they parachute, they come there 10 lectures and gone, disappeared. This is not allowing the community to build an affinity and close relationship with the ulama. And the ulama also need to be given an opportunity by the community to actually just hang out with them, chill with them. There is no protocol around the Prophet. Okay, the Sahaba, there's no protocol around the Prophet. Okay, this is very clear in the riwayat. As a matter of fact, very famous narration everybody should know that sometimes when these tribe member would come, okay, from Yemen or some other place, they would actually ask in the mosque, which one is the Rasul? We heard there's a Nabi. They couldn't even tell which one is the Prophet. He was so part and parcel of the community, and that's why he was able to bring those changes. Okay, the leader and the scholar and the best educator, who is the Prophet, he has to be on the front lines. He doesn't send some companion to Taif. Oh, you go to Taif. After the boycott that happened, after the boycott in Mecca, he didn't send some companion, you go from me and you try and negotiate. No, he went himself. And he is the one who was struck with the stones and the rocks. He was the one bleeding. He is the one who's on the front lines. And that's why the Sahaba are mesmerized. Because this is one solution. This is one solution. Allow the scholars to play their role in a proper manner. Sometimes communities put pressure on ulama. They're actually unable to do what they want to do. Okay, if you actually give $1 million to a scholar, okay, let's say a researcher, and ask them, what will you open up? A center or an institute? I'm pretty sure they will say institute. Why? Because Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is not known for any masjid. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, the entire revolution came from a school, from a madrasa actually. And that's why you're called and you're proud of the Ja'fari madhab. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam's entire life is actually teaching. He's teaching, he's educating. That's why we're proud. That's why we're proud. And if you want to imitate the Imams, then we have to look a little bit closer. Okay, this is still a recap. Now, another solution that I want to entertain tonight, and inshallah, I hope I can get through it. I'm looking at the time and I'm very scared. It's a big thing, and it'll be a little bit new. And I want to actually, it's going to sound very anticlimactic. If you enjoyed the first 3, this is going to sound very anticlimactic, but I'm going to give you my own experience. First year of Hawza, I came across this book in English. Okay, it's a Sayyid Mutahhari's book, and it's on alislam.org. It is called Guiding the Youth of the New Generation. Okay, very, very small book. It's not a very long book. I said, okay, wow, that's a huge claim. Guiding the youth of the new generation. This is going to be like a master plan. Once you read this, we're all going to be guided. So you read through this book, and you can read it, it's online in English. You read through it, and Sayyid Mutahhari is mentioning all the problems of the ummah. This is problematic, the leaders are corrupt, people don't have education, they're not understanding things properly, and he's going on and on and on, and then finally the last chapter is supposed to be the solution. And I'm waiting, I'm reading it online on my phone or whatever. I'm like, this is it, man, what's it gonna be? What's the solution? And I read the solution, and he says, yeah, the solution is just get closer to the Quran. And I literally just wanted to throw my phone. It's like, that's your solution? Get to the Quran? Ye to har roz sunte hain. It's a very vague thing to say, get close to the Quran. Brother, get close to the Quran. No, what does that even mean? So I was put off by that book. I said, what is Sayyid Mutahari saying? After all the problems you're telling me, he's saying the problem is we've abandoned the Quran. We've left it. Brothers and sisters, after 10 years in Hawza, after all the Arabic grammar and the Nahu and the Sarf and the Kufan said this and the Basran said this and the Usul and the Fiqh and the Rijal and the philosophy and the this and everything, 10 years later, I came back and somebody asked me this question. I said, I think the problem is we have to go back to the Quran. And that was my personal experience. Now, inshallah, tonight I'm going to expand on that a little bit. What do I mean when I say we have to go back to the Quran? Guys, one of the biggest problems that we have done, I think we can all acknowledge that we have abandoned the Quran. We don't have an affinity. There's a very famous narration from also Imam Sadiq alayhi salam about Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Very famous narration where a companion by the name of Hammad bin Isa, he comes to the Imam and the Imam says, "Oh Hammad, do you know how to pray?" He says, "Of course I know how to pray. I have memorized the book of Hariz." Hariz was another companion. Okay, he had a book. It was like the Tawzi'ul Masail of that time. So if I come to the brother, I said, "Brother, do you know how to pray?" You says, "Yes, I have learned all the 100 rulings in Sayyid Sistani's Tawzi'ul Masail." That's the jawab Hamad is giving, okay? Imam Sadiq says, forget the book. Show me, do you know how to pray? Don't show me, memorize the ruling. Show me, demonstrate it. So Hamad prays 2 rakat. Okay? This is a very famous narration. Hamad prays 2 rakat. And the Imam, this is a very close companion of Imam, okay? And the Imam says to Hamad, "Oh Hamad, what a disgusting thing that a man can turn 50, 60 years old and he cannot pray one salat with all of his adab properly." Okay, and Hamad says, I'm destroyed. What do you mean? Now the Imam is not saying your namaz was batil, you were making mistakes. He's saying, no, with the complete adab. 50, 60 years you've been praying, you haven't learned all the adab. So Hamad says, "Imam, you teach me." So the Imam prays and then the hadith goes. This is one of the most detailed riwayah we have of salat, by the way. Very descriptive. It's one of the main narrations. Why am I saying this? I want to link this actually to the Quran. We are community. Okay, let's say in Canada, I don't know how old, 30, 40 years, 50 years communities. Is it not a shame that for 50 years, we as a community have been living and growing up and we have turned 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and we have never opened the book of Allah to see what Allah is actually telling us to do? The time of Hamad, they already have an affinity with the Quran. These are all Hafiz al-Quran at that time. They already have an affinity. So the standard is very high for them. Imam is giving them, nitpicking on their adab of salat. We're very far away from that level. My question is, how sad is it that 40, 50, 60 years can go by in a community and we have not even done a simple session on Tafsir al-Quran? This book, how is it possible? It's mind-blowing for me. And one of the reasons I would say is because the way we have presented the Quran is very strange. And of course, I will also blame the colonialists that destroyed us in our countries back home. They stripped us and removed us from our Arabic language. We don't have any affinity with Arabic. We don't know Arabic, and it becomes a very strange language for us, and it's very difficult for us. And we don't want to inculcate that either. This is a huge project that took place. If you were a smart, intellectual, educated person in the Muslim world, whether you were in India, Pakistan, Iran, wherever you were, you knew Arabic. It was the main language. Okay, the colonials came, they completely destroyed it. We don't have that affinity. So all of a sudden, they destroyed you, they disconnected you from your entire tradition. Your entire tradition, 14 centuries, is built on the Arabic language, the Quran, the Hadith, the Riwayat, the commentaries. They just came, they cut it off. That's it. You're just hanging. Okay, you're just hanging on in the air. And the other problem then that happens is because we don't have this affinity, when we talk about the Quran or when we present the Quran as a solution, the problem is we are presenting the Quran as a prescription. Okay, we say, if you have this problem, read these ayat. Do this wird. And the problem in this thinking is that we are turning the Quran into a prescription rather than the medicine itself. Okay, this is the key point. The Quran, guys, and when it was coming at the time of the Prophet, was not even a book. It was just oral. The Prophet is just saying something orally, like the way I'm saying orally things right now. That's what he's saying. There's no book. 20 years there was no book. After the Prophet, most ulama say after the Prophet it was compiled. So actually the Arabs are just hearing things and they are understanding the meanings and they are getting mesmerized by this. And today I want to quote a very serious quote from Imam Khomeini in a commentary he writes in a very famous hadith. It's a commentary called, the hadith is called Junudul Aqli wal Jahl. It's a very long narration where the Imam talks about the armies of intellect and the armies of Jahl. Imam Khomeini has a commentary on this. In the introduction of this commentary, he starts complaining. And I'm going to quote that entire paragraph that he writes. It's in Farsi, but I translated it into English. And he is saying exactly what I'm saying right now. Okay, this is, I'm taking it from him. He's saying that, look, what we mean is that so he's going on. So he's talking about something. He says, what I mean is that the purpose of the Quran and Hadith was to cleanse the intellects and purify the souls. Okay? In order to reach the greatest destination of Tawheed. Meaning it was supposed to be the medicine itself. But most of the times, the commentators of Hadith and the Mufassirin of the Quran have not taken this point seriously. Which is the main point. And what they do is that they address this akhlaqi stuff very quickly or in passing. Instead, they spend a lot of time on those aspects which were not the main objectives of the wahi, of the revelation or the narrations. For example, what do they spend time on? The grammatical points, the philosophical points, the historical points, and all these other points. And they're missing the main point of the revelation, which was actually to transform the insan because it was the medicine itself. So Imam Khomeini is saying most of these mufassirin and the hadith commentators, they have done all of this and they have been unable to use the Quran and give it to people to actually change them. Okay? He says even the ethicists, the ulama of akhlaq, who have written books on this discipline, have either discussed and investigated the issues of akhlaq in a very philosophical manner, such as the book Taharat al-A'raq of Ibn Miskawayh or Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi's book or Ihya al-Ulum of Ghazali. These are considered to be some of the most important books in akhlaq and ethics. He says this way of writing, the way they have written, has very little impact on cleansing one's moral and for purifying their soul. In fact, it has no impact. Because it becomes more like a history of akhlaq. And then that just mentions some stories and reports which prevent a person from attaining the real purpose of these disciplines. Okay? And it comes back to our whole purpose of education. The purpose of education was to become a better person. But seems that there's also not just a problem with the content sometimes, but there's also a problem in the way we are delivering this content. That's also a huge task. Okay? And he goes on, the book Ihya al-Ulum, a book which all the scholars have praised and commended. They said, Ghazali, you did a pretty decent job, even though he's not Shia. Not bad, good job. And they consider that book to be the best book written on the discipline of ethics in the opinion of the author. In the opinion of Imam Khomeini, it does not help in correcting one's akhlaq and in removing the root of corruption, nor in purifying the soul. Imam Khomeini just throws water on Bichara Ghazali's entire book, Ihya al-Ulum. The guy revived the whole sciences. Imam Khomeini says it doesn't do anything. Okay, it doesn't actually even change you. Just a bunch of stories, and he's tried to analyze it very, philosophically, but it's not going to change the person. In fact, the vast amount of unnecessary discussion in these, and narrating all sorts of stories, prevent the human from attaining the real purpose, and they prevent the purification of the soul. In other words, Imam Khomeini says, look, the books of akhlaq, and we can extend it, the speeches and the lectures and the lessons that we are giving and the Quran and the commentaries that we are giving and speaking about, they should be admonitions and should be the medicine themselves that cure the pain and ailments, not that they merely show us what the cure is. Sometimes we come on the minbar and say, look, the cure is this, the cure is this. No, the Quran is the cure itself. Okay? And Imam Khomeini says, the author, I've opened up this discussion that we need to write better books. Maybe we need to deliver and prepare better lectures, the way we're lecturing. So that and he says, I'm saying this because if a scholar who is a capable writer if someone can find someone like this, then they should produce a work of this nature. I did not open this discussion to say that I have the ability, or that my broken pen has this capability, or my dark heart has the ability to see. Imam Khomeini is saying about himself. He said, look, he's saying it's very easy to critique. He's like, I know. It's very easy to critique, but it's very difficult to solve the problem. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to soften our hearts and give us sincerity so we are actually able to do this. And because it is so difficult, that's why the prophets and the anbiya were entrusted with this responsibility. Okay? But that doesn't mean we don't try. That doesn't mean we don't try. Okay? Now, as I said, I'm a little bit worried about the time, but I'm trying to see how I can incorporate at least the surah's analysis. I will have to skip a lot of discussion tonight, unfortunately. I will make one point very quickly. What I'm trying to say is that if we are to look at the Quran, let's look at the Quran, because Quran is a book that does ta'aleem plus tarbiyah, meaning it gives you information, but at the same time it's a medicine, and it will get you to actually change as well. Okay, so for example, ta'aleem, it will teach you that Allah is the Khaliq, Allah is the Rabb, Allah is the Razik. It will teach you about the fiqhi rulings. It will even teach you about the akhlaq. It will say, be nice to your parents. Okay, but the thing is, it has an additional element, which is that the way that the Quran is saying it is actually gonna make you act upon that. This is the key point I'm trying to get at. It's not just the Quran is telling you Allah is Khaliq. No. The way it's going to do it is going to make you change. Now, the way I'm going to show you this is that, look, it's the power of language. It's the power of language. And that's why I read the ayah, Allamahul Bayan. Allah says, I created insan and then I taught him the bayan. I taught insan how to think. I have given this, by the way, if anybody is interested, you can go to my YouTube channel, Iqra Online, and look at these tafsir of Surah Al-Alaq, 3 tafasir I've given. I explained this on a lot more detail. 3 lessons I've already given on this. So I'm going to do khulasa over here. I want you guys to look at the power of language and see how your mind goes up and down. In grade 10, we did a book called A Tale of Two Cities. Okay, Charles Dickens, very famous. Maybe tomorrow in the walk, someone will have his quote. Charles Dickens, they put his quote usually. I don't know if it's authentic or not, but I see it. A Tale of Two Cities, because all of you know English here, I want you to visualize in your mind the power of the opening paragraph. Okay, I want to read it. He starts the book off like this. He says, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, and it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, and it was the winter of despair. Because you all know English, your mind is going up and down. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And you actually are interested in seeing what's he saying next. Where's it going to end? Where's it going to go? This is Charles Dickens, a fallible human who has a little bit of ability to write some interesting literature. And it can really change people. This literature can change people. Let's look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the very first revelation of the Quran and try to do a very quick analysis and see how Allah will not just do ta'aleem, but at the same time He will get you to actually He will do tarbiyah as well. He will tell you that it is the medicine itself. This, by the way, I just bought this from England. I was in England in the summer. It's called My Quran Study Journal. It was just published by a Shia publishing company called The Sun Behind the Cloud. I'm not paid to do this, by the way. It's a very good book, I think. It's a Quran where you can actually write your own notes. Okay, and I think it's very important for us to, if you want to build a relationship with the Quran, you go, you read it, you write your notes, and there's also pages where you can write your reflection notes, for example. At the end of each sort of juz, you can, so like 4 or 5 pages, you can write your own notes. And it's very important to start reading the Quran in this way. Not just, reading some ayat and saying, okay, that's it. No, write your reflection points, write your questions and stuff in the Quran. Interact with the Quran, okay? We're going to go to Surah Al-Alaq, the very first revelation. Okay, Surah Al-Alaq is being revealed at a time where the Prophet, once again, if you watch the tafsir, which is online, I explain the whole history behind it. But khulasa is that Abu Jahl is preventing the Prophet from praying. This is what I argue over there, that the Prophet was already asked to pray in the Kaaba, and Abu Jahl is getting very, very upset. Okay, why are the mushrikeen getting upset? They're getting upset because imagine somebody comes to the center, for example, and I don't know where the alam is here towards Qibla, but imagine the alam is in that corner, for example. Like in my masjid, the alam is in other corner, and somebody were to come in and start praying towards the alam. Okay, what would we all do? We will say, brother, actually the Qibla is this way. You all feel, okay, yeah, it's okay, you can respect the alam, but you don't pray, you don't say Fajr 2 rakat, Allahu Akbar. You will start feeling uneasy. And if this person says, no, this is my Qibla actually. If you are all muwahideen, inshallah, you will have a problem with this. I hope you will all have a problem. You don't pray, the Qibla doesn't change for anything. So the mushrikeen is the same thing, because when you pray in the Kaaba, you're supposed to pray and bow down to an idol. So when the Prophet is praying over there and there's no idol, they're saying, what are you doing? Who are you praying towards? Like, you're supposed to go pray to an idol. Like, there's nothing here in front of you. So they start getting a problem, and they start having a problem, and then the Prophet, he gets a little bit worried. He goes to the cave of Hira, and this is when Surah Al-Alaq is revealed. Now look at, I want you to divide Surah Al-Alaq in a couple of scenes. Okay, like scenes, because it's going to be very, very visual. It starts off by saying, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra means read. Okay? So imagine the camera angle. It's coming right to the Prophet. It's saying, you read, you. Okay, so the image is right on the insan of the Prophet. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. In the name of your Rabb who actually created you. So he's mentioning rububiyyah. Rububiyyah is an element of care and kindness. I am the Rabb. I'm the one taking care of you. And in fact, because I'm the Rabb, because I'm also the Khaliq. Only the Khaliq can be your true Rabb. Okay, only the Khaliq can be your true Rabb. Because remember, the mushrikeen, they believed Allah is the Khaliq. They believed Allah is the Khaliq, they just didn't believe in His rububiyyah. They said, no, we don't accept His rububiyyah, and we don't accept His ubudiyyah. But they said, no, Allah is the Khaliq. In the ayat, it says, Quran itself says, ask them who created everything, they will say Allah. Allah says, no, if I'm the Khaliq, I'm also the Rabb, and I created you with a lot of care. Okay? Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق. Okay? It starts off with, talking to the Prophet, and then talks about insan. Now, insan is not on planet Earth. It just says خلق الإنسان. This distant person in a vacuum, خلق الإنسان, and it zooms right back in من علق. Okay, من علق. So it talks about insan, خلق الإنسان, and then it zooms right back in علق, the smallest thing that you can even think of. Okay? Read in the name of your Lord who created you, who created insan, and you have this image of an insan. Wow, we're insan. All of us, we're all big, we're arrogant, we're proud. We're proud. We have takabbur, and Allah said, "I created this insan from an alaq." So He brings it back down to the smallest blood clot, and then He comes back to the Prophet. Iqra wa rabbukal akram. You see how the shifts are happening? Is it not moving your mind? Your mind is moving. If you knew Arabic like the Jahil Arabs, you now understand why they're getting angry. They're saying this is magic. How are you going so quick? And there's no book. It's not the Prophet is going and saying, let me write some notes tonight. No, this is happening right away on the spot. And I have a whole analysis on this. Why is Allah mentioning Iqra, next ayah, Alladhi allama bil qalam. We say the Arabs were illiterate. So why is He mentioning the qalam? If I come here and say, you should all respect me because I taught you all, like I'm the one who taught you guys astronomy. Most of you guys will say, we don't even know astronomy. Like 2 guys know astronomy in this community, for example. How is that even a merit? There's a whole analysis over there that I've done in the series. Iqra wa rabbukal akram. Once again, He says, Iqra, O Prophet, read. Your Rabb is akram. He's the most generous. He's the most generous. He made you from a blood clot, and He's the most generous. But why is He most generous? Alladhi allama bil qalam. I am generous because actually I did ta'aleem. I did ta'aleem of you, and I taught you how to use the pen, which is a tool of education. Which is a tool by which, what did I say in my first lecture? Transmission of knowledge. Qalam is a tool by which you inscribe knowledge and you transmit knowledge. All of these, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, even the word qalam, I've given an entire analysis. Time is short, I'm going to go through this even quicker. Now, الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. My generosity is because I taught them how to use the pen, and I taught them all of that which they did not even know. So look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is coming with a lot of care. He's saying, look, I'm the one who created you. I'm your Rabb. I'm the one who made you from a very small blood clot. I'm the one who taught you. Kalla innal insana la yatgha. The camera angle changes again. And it goes to this insan, who's Allah is saying, Kalla innal insana la yatgha. But this insan, he's trying to run away from my domain. He's doing tughyan. Tughyan means to cross the borders, cross the boundaries. Not isyan. Tughyan is worse than isyan. Isyan is a little bit crossing. Tughyan, you're crossing it all the way. Why is he doing tughyan? Ar-rahahu staghna. This insan, now imagine this insan in a vacuum. He sees him, he's doing tughyan. Why? Because he is seeing himself as mustaghni. Mustaghni means he is not connected to anyone. Ghani. Ghani means you're rich. You're not in need of anyone. Guys, these are the very first ayat being revealed. They're extremely powerful. Okay, extremely powerful. This man is seeing himself as mustaghni, istaghna, even though inna ila rabbika ruj'a. Where are you running? Your return is going to be right here. I'm going to pull you back. I created you, and I made you from a small clot. And then I taught you how to write. I taught you everything that you didn't know, and you're going away doing tughyan and seeing yourself as independent. The camera angle is changing, and he's saying, Inna ila rabbika ruj'a. Where are you going? Right here, you come back. Okay? Then it goes on. And then now it talks to the Prophet. Ara'ayta alladhi yanha? O Prophet, let me come back to you. Do you see that man who is preventing? He's talking to Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl is not being addressed directly. He says, O Prophet, let me come back to you. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى عَبْدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. The Prophet is being asked himself to see himself as an abd outside. O Prophet, do you see that man who is preventing the slave of Allah from praying? So the Prophet is being asked to observe himself as a slave outside. So he's being asked to see the scene outside. Okay, this is extremely powerful. أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَىٰ أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَىٰ أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّىٰ. This Abu Jahl, does he not realize that, whether he goes on guidance or whether he does amara bit taqwa or whether he lies and he runs away, alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. Yara means it's a very close observation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. Yara, ru'ya is the reason why we have 10 different Eids, because the marajid is ikhtilaf. Ru'ya means to see with the physical eyes. Allah is not a body, but Allah will still use this verb. Allah is not a jism. Allah does not have eyes. But the verb he uses is alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. But if a lecturer or an educator or a teacher comes and says, yes, brothers and sisters, Allah, God is the uncaused cause. He is the ultimate cause, and all of us are effects, and we are contingent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that gonna change you? If I describe Allah like that, if I say Allah is the uncaused cause, there's an infinite regression that is happening, and we are all contingent upon Allah. This is the philosophical explanation of Allah. But over here, look at how he's saying. He's like, he says, Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. Does he not see that I'm actually seeing him? What do we do when our moms and dads, when we're young and we're doing shararte at home, and our mothers and mama and abu are watching? What do? It's like, no, mama is going to watch me. I better hide. Allah is saying, Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. Does he not know I'm seeing him? Then Allah says, now the angle will change again. Kalla. He's like, no, this man is doing so much tughyan. لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ لَنَسْفَعًا بِالنَّاصِيَةِ. This man is not going to listen to me. And if he does not listen, we are going to grab him by the forelock. They used to have long hair. Okay? So we're going to grab him by the forelock. نَاصِيَةٍ كَاذِبَةٍ خَاطِعَةٍ. This forelock, this man, okay, he's a liar and he's mistaken. Okay? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's as if he is not even going to look at Abu Jahl. He says, فَلْيَدْعُ نَادِيَا. Yad'u is third person. You know what? O Prophet, let him call his men. Let him call his men. سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَ. And we will call our angels of hell. Okay? Look at, guys, brothers and sisters, imagine if we had a proper time and depth and we did tafsir of very simple surah, the first very beginning surah. How would this not humble you at the end of the day? Is it possible this is not going to humble you? Allah is saying that I created you, I'm doing all of this thing, and still you're doing tughyan. The surah begins with the message of humility. The surah begins with the message of humility, which I discussed yesterday very briefly. Of course, I will not read the last ayah, and the entire surah becomes a package, because in the last ayah, Allah says, now that I'm going to take care of this, O Prophet, you leave the cave of Hira, go back to the haram and continue praying. And it becomes like a salat. The surah Iqra, surah Alaq actually becomes like a salat. It says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Go start with Bismillah and with the sajda. The entire surah is actually salat package right in front of you. Okay? This is the very first revelation of Quran to the Jahil Arabs, and this surah alone, there's so much discussion. Why is Allah mentioning the qalam? These people did not even use a qalam. There's no perception. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the very get-go does not care these people are Jahil and they're in superstitions. The Islam is going to raise the bar extremely high right from the beginning. And these Jahil Arabs who are literate, they're going to say, wow, this guy is coming. They're saying he's ummi, he doesn't know how to read or write. And people are also seeing, the illiterate people are seeing in society, they're saying, wow, this man, Muhammad, we know him. He was just with us 40 years, he grew up with us, he was a shepherd, he was doing this, he was doing that, he was trading. He's coming up with something so powerful and he's challenging the elites of Mecca. We never even seen this person read or write. And yet he's going to challenge them on astronomy. If a 10-year-old boy comes right now and challenges me on, I don't know, some Islamic studies or, my marketing major, people are going to look at him like, what's this boy doing? Like definitely something ajib. Like this boy, either he's trolling or he's very serious. And they're going to realize that there's no trolling here. There's something miraculous happening over here. Okay? So inshallah, as I said, if you guys are all interested, this is a much lengthier discussion. I wish I could have done justice to it. There's no way I did any justice to it. I apologize, immensely. But obviously the time was also short. And these things, inshallah, we can continue talking about these in more of a classroom type format. If you can watch the tafsir series, which is online on Iqra online, the YouTube channel, I have done Surah Al-Alaq, Surah Mudaththir, Surah Muzammil, inshallah, and I want to continue doing the tafsir in this way, where you take out the nature and the literary devices that the Quran is using, because that's actually the part where the tarbiyah is happening. Just telling me that Allah says Allah is the Khaliq, Allah is the Razik, that doesn't change anything. That does not change anything. The power is in actually the language. Okay? Power is in the language. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.